Thank you, Barb, for that very kind introduction. In order for me to actually tell you about customer engagement, though, I need to start by disabusing you of a notion. If you think that there's been a business revolution over the last decade plus, you're wrong. Actually, what we've had is a digital communications revolution, which has transformed not only how we communicate, with whom we communicate, why we communicate, and the devices we use, but also the expectations of that communication and also who we trust. But it's also transformed how we create, distribute, and consume information. That's what we've had. This has impacted every single institution on the planet, including business. Now, obviously, the purpose of what we're talking about today is business, so we're going to focus in and around how customer engagement affects what is now a digital customer. Used to be that I would ask audiences when I would speak, like, how many of you use, and then I'd talk about a review site or some device or something. I don't bother anymore, because when it boils down to it, we all do, regardless of age. But what I do see with a digital customer, which is more important than anything else, is how they trust and who they trust has been one of the fundamental differences between now and the past when it comes to that kind of customer that we all interact with as businesses. For example, if you look at the whole discussions on brand trust of brand information, you'll find studies that say when a customer is asked, do you trust a brand about their own information, 10 to 53%, depending on whose study you believe, say they do. Note the range, though, 10 to 53%. But when you're talking about peer trust, when you're talking about what's called a person like me, then the trust level goes, depending on who you believe, between 72 and 94%. In other words, they trust their peers. They trust a person like them much more than they trust the brand itself. And that's hugely important when it comes to customer engagement. So the question then becomes, all right, we're talking about customer engagement. Well, we engage customers how? We're all walking around now with mobile devices. Even the etiquette around that thing's changed, where nobody's that upset if you happen to be looking at it during the midst of a presentation or some sort of thing on a stage. But strategy has also changed when it comes to businesses when they engage those customers. So, for example, if you go back a few years, we all heard the word multi-channel. Right? Well, what did multi-channel mean? It meant, well, we have to figure out the channel that the customer cares to communicate on and then optimize to that. And so businesses now have to be ready when they're going to engage with customers in 6, 7, 8 channels. In fact, Aberdeen did a study on optimized customer engagement when it comes to omni-channel, and they found that the minimum number for a best-in-class company is 7 channels that you have to be prepared for. All right, so that's all well and good. So now the question becomes, all right, what is customer engagement? Well, before we get to it, let's look at the data here. You take a look at this and you see this is data from the Gallup organization, which oddly enough has turned into the actual best customer engagement researchers that are out there. And the data on the left, top left, is really important. It says 23%, you'll see that. And what it's talking about there is the difference between a fully engaged customer and a normally engaged customer. Normally engaged would be like, we interact with the company, we buy stuff from the company, we're sort of loyal. A fully engaged customer is somebody equivalent to an advocate. There's what they call a 23% premium, and that means share of wallet, that means customer satisfaction, a whole other number of factors, meaning there's a material financial gain by engaging your customers at a high level. Now, on the bottom, you'll see the sort of darker blue one. It says minus 13%. That's what they call a discount. And I don't mean they're giving you a discount, meaning you get a 13% less reduction in value when you have a disengaged customer. So obviously, the monetary value of engaging a customer is fairly clear. So what is customer engagement? Well, let's look at 2 things it isn't really quick. One is it's not marriage, okay? It's not intimacy at the level we always of loving your spouse. When we talk about loving the company, we don't operate the same way. That's 2 different things, and I'm not going to get into it in the interest of time. It's also not advocacy or loyalty. It fosters advocacy or loyalty, but it isn't that. So then the question becomes, what is it? Okay, because I've probably held off long enough on telling you. Right? So here's my definition of it, which of course is the one I like the best, right? It's the ongoing interaction between company and customers offered by the company, chosen by the customer. Now, there's a very explicit choice of words in this one. Okay, and the key phrases you'll see there are ongoing interaction, meaning we continue to do business and continue to involve ourselves with the company that we're choosing. It also says offered by the company. What does that mean? Every company in the world starts with one thing, and that's constraints. They're constrained legally, they're constrained financially, they're constrained by time, they're constrained by their personnel power, they're constrained by a lot. On the other hand, there isn't a customer in the world who cares about companies' constraints, right? They want what they want. They want a highly personalized interaction with the company because guess what? In order for that to happen, meaning in order for them to get what they want from that company, it's no longer a matter of the company providing just products and services. The customer wants tools so they can communicate with the company or interact with the company in ways that are valid to them. And at the same time, they also want what we call consumable experiences, which are things like going to an American Girl store and having your doll eat lunch with at the store, have their hair done at the store. The doll doesn't know what's going on, it's a doll, but your daughter does, and consequently, you pay $400 before you walk out of that store more because of that consumable experience. That's what people want now. Now, the thing is, you have to provide that, but if you're a company with 2, 5, 10, 20 million customers, you got to figure out how you're going to do that for 2, 5, 10, 20 million people who are seeing themselves as individuals who don't care about all your other customers or your constraints. And that's why it says offered by the company, because you can't give them everything. So what you have to do is you use your data, you use your analytics, you use your social information, you use your demographics, and you figure out from that what are the things that a significant group have in common so that you can make that offer to them. So maybe if you have, I don't know, 1 million customers, let's say, 200,000 like roughly these 10 things, another 400,000 like these 5 things, et cetera, et cetera. So you find out there's maybe 50 things you can offer that cover the bulk of your customers, so you offer it to them. Then the other key factor here is the customer gets to choose. Right? They get to choose what they want of the offering because then you have what's personalized. On the one hand, you have this array, this basket of things you can offer the customer. On the other hand, the customer gets to pick which ones so they feel like they're having a highly personalized interaction because you know enough about them to make this offer to them and they get to choose. Now, in order to close this out, I'm going to talk to you about an entire nation that has actually figured out how to do this kind of customer engagement, where you've got this ongoing relationship, in this case, with their citizens and constituents and the tourists who come to this nation. This is Singapore. Back in August 2005, the Prime Minister of Singapore gave this very now famous speech where he announced a national service initiative. And in the speech, he said, as a country, for all our tourists, for all our citizens, we want to be like the Ritz-Carlton, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And he literally put the entire nation's resources behind this, right? Now, what happened? They created a collaborative e-government framework that actually then was executed against specific programs that involve citizen feedback. So, for example, there's a omni-channel program inside of Singapore called Reach Singapore. So, for example, around budget time, the raw budget, the draft budget is published. Everyone in the country gets access to that budget in its raw form before it's finalized. That you get it on Twitter, you get it on Facebook, you can get it via email, you can get it on the web, you can get it in person at the national feedback days that they have. You can get it via direct mail. You can get it in any form you want it. And then your job as a citizen is to give them feedback on all the specific things that you want changed or you think should be added and so on and so forth. I actually attended in Singapore several years ago a National Feedback Day where 3,000 Singaporean citizens came to give their views on the budget, which, you know, is a population of 4.5 million. That's a significant percentage. Now, at the end of the time, all that budget feedback is taken, then the new budgets are published with all the changes based on the feedback through Reach Singapore. Right? I mean, you're talking about something that is enormously interactive, enormously valuable, not only gets the feedback, which talks about the engagement and the interaction, but then tells you the result, which is the other key to engagement and interaction, that you actually come back. The other aspect is transparency, the honesty you have with your citizens. So every year, Singapore does a national public sector outcome review. And what they do with this national public sector outcome review is essentially say, okay, here's how we did. And if they did bad in something that they announced earlier on, it's in that review. Said, we did bad, we need your feedback, how do we improve this? We're working on it now, we will do better next year. It's literally straightforward, no hype, it's what they did. Not only that, they've added specific programs at even the agency level, the individual federal agency level, for feedback and for customer service in particular. U.S., for example, has had a problem for years where you'd call up Department of Agriculture saying, help, help, there's a bear in my backyard, right? And they would say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't do that. And then you'll have to hang up. You got a bear in your backyard, okay? I mean, you're sitting there like saying you're going to be eaten, and then saying, sorry, we have no way, we don't handle that. Singapore has the No Wrong Door program. So you call them up and say it was the U.S. translated to that. You say, I'm sorry, that's Fisheries and Wildlife. We'll transfer you over. We'll take care of it, though. We're on this now. We'll send someone out there. Don't worry. All this will be taken care of. Meaning, no matter who responds, wrong or right, you are always directed to the right place, and that the organization you called or you interacted with is responsible for getting you there and stays with you till it happens. Now, what are the results of this? Look at these World Bank worldwide governance indicators. These are the indicators that say you are nationally successful, right? As a country that involves your citizenry. The numbers are staggering. You can just read them on the screen. But you look at the survey on the quality of e-services. Again, staggering numbers. The Reach feedback results, staggering numbers. I mean, you've got involvement of a citizenry, and year after year, they are #1 in the world when it comes to engaging their citizens. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about here how you engage. You develop omni-channel strategies. You make sure that the customers have a feeling that they have a choice in those interactions, and that you know enough about them to make those choices interesting and important to them so they feel like they're being valued as customers. That is customer engagement in a nutshell, and that is the way we are now seeing at top of mind in companies all over the world as a #1 priority.